This spreadsheet has 16,000 cells in it, so it better be able to recalculate pretty fast. This spreadsheet's being used in a presentation, so it has to look good. You know, spreadsheet users like the accountants here at Price Waterhouse are power users. They want more functionality out of their spreadsheet programs, so software vendors are courting them with a whole new generation of spreadsheet software, trying to get them to break their old 1, 2, 3 habits. Today we take a look at the spreadsheet wars, 1, 2, 3 versus the world, on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte magazine, and Bix, the Byte Information Exchange. In print and online, Byte and Bix serve computer professionals worldwide with detailed information on new hardware, software, and technologies.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stewart Cheifet, and this is Gary Kildall. Gary, today's show begins with a quiz. What do these three things have in common?
Now, Stewart, I can't imagine. See, it's transparent tape, facial tissues, and gelatin dessert. I can't imagine.
You're making my life difficult, Gary. This is Scotch tape, Kleenex, and Jell-O. The whole point being that these are three products in which the product, one brand name, was so dominant it became the generic name for that category. Now, in spreadsheets, people thought maybe that was going to be Lotus 1, 2, 3, but not quite. We've got all kinds of competitors out there in the spreadsheet world. The problem, of course, is the delay, or one of the problems, is the delay of the new 3.0 version of Lotus 1, 2, 3, which is now about a year behind schedule. From a programmer's point of view, so our viewers can understand, what kind of problem can you run into in writing a program that takes a year to solve?
Well, you know, Stewart, 10 years ago, these programs we were writing are very, very small and not very complex. One or two people did the programming, all the design work, documentation, maybe even the marketing. But nowadays, the complexity of the successful, expensive programs is very, very high, and it takes a whole team of programmers, documenters, marketeers, and so forth to introduce these products. And as a result, this whole thing mushrooms out and becomes a very, very complicated process, organizationally as well as from a programming standpoint.
Gary, today we'll see the major players in the new spreadsheet wars. We'll take a look at Quattro from Borland, the new version of Excel from Microsoft. We'll see some add-ons and add-ins that enhance your spreadsheets, and we will see Lotus 1, 2, 3 version 3.0. Now, one of the new players in the spreadsheet wars is from Ashton Tate. It's called Full Impact. We begin today by visiting one company which has just switched to Full Impact.
The Panamax company in San Rafael, California, produces electronic surge suppressors for personal computers. Panamax sales are on the rise, and to help maintain that trend, the company relies on a Macintosh-based spreadsheet called Full Impact from Ashton Tate.
I use it for persuasion, and we've got an accounting department that really keeps all the numbers, but then when we get together in meetings, we find that we really are trying to get a point across, and usually not just a list of numbers.
Full Impact belongs to a new type of spreadsheet software, incorporating desktop publishing tools. Using the familiar-looking graphic interface of the Macintosh, the program can mix numbers, text, and charts dynamically. To present data in chart form, the user picks a spot on the spreadsheet and chooses a type of chart from a pull-down menu. Graphs and charts can be moved anywhere on the screen by dragging them with the mouse.
The Macintosh really provides the environment that allows a program like Full Impact to come along and be realized. And without the appropriate environment, it'd be much more difficult on a machine that's, for instance, just text-based.
Someday, Austin would like to see an integrated package that would be like a blank page with all the graphics, text, and calculating functions available independently. Even if that happens, he recommends against counting too much on the software.
It reminds me of the question, anybody can buy paints, you know, does that make you a painter? And of course the answer is no. So all the program can really do is provide the tools, and then the idea still has to come from a person.
Joining us in the studio now is Phil Welch, Spreadsheet Product Manager with Microsoft. Next to Phil, Jan Lewis, President of Lewis Research Corporation, and Jared Taylor, West Coast Editor of PC Magazine. Gary?
Jared, if we look at the history of spreadsheets, I guess it really started with VisiCalc in the old days. And Lotus came along with integration of spreadsheets and graphics and databases, and it really took that market away. Right. Now, is this same sort of thing going to happen again? We've got Excel out there, we've got Quattro coming along, and other products. Is history going to repeat itself?
I would be the last to predict that that's what's going to happen. 1, 2, 3 is very, very well dug in. I think at this point there are few people who would try to argue that it is a better spreadsheet than Excel, for example, or that it's a better spreadsheet than Surpass. But the fact of the matter is it's there, it's out in force, people are loyal to it, it's just got a bunker built around it.
But why is the market kind of breaking up to some extent then?
The reason that there are serious competitors out there now is that 1, 2, 3 has sat still for too long. Mm-hmm. In the face of the possibilities for technological improvement, it didn't come out with a version that lets you link spreadsheet, better on-screen formatting, better graphics, printing graphs from the screen, macro libraries. There are all kinds of things 1, 2, 3 could have done, but didn't.
But that's promised in future releases?
Yes, release, when it shows up, release 3 is liable to be an excellent program.
Okay.
But we'll see.
You're representing Microsoft and Excel here. Can you show us a little bit about Excel?
Sure. Excel is a very different sort of product than 1, 2, 3 or even 1, 2, 3 release 3. It's designed to take advantage of the 286 and 386 processing power that most new computers have, and it uses those to display graphics or bits of information instead of characters. The way the product's organized is there are menus across the top, and you can get at those menus with a mouse, which many new users find easier, or you can use commands that are familiar to Lotus users, the / key, for example, to load files, and so forth. Now, adding works the same way that you might in a 1, 2, 3 sheet. You type a plus sign, then select a cell, and then type a minus sign, another cell, hit return, and you get your value. But what's significant about Excel is that you can use that same vocabulary across multiple sheets. Here I have several different files loaded, and as you can see, I can pick up and manipulate any of them. Now let's go to this annual sheet, size it up, and make a summary of these 2 other worksheets. I simply select a range of cells, type a plus sign. Let's go out to West. The first click activates the sheet. The second click creates the formula. I will type a plus sign, and we'll go back out to East. Now, you notice the way the formula works, it has the sheet name and the cell reference, sort of a 3D reference. So we'll finish up, take this sheet here, hit return, and it will link those sheets together. Now, another thing that's very easy to do in Excel is to make a very nice graph. I simply select a range, type a function key, and Excel will produce a graph. Now, if I arrange all these different files on the sheet, you'll see that they're still linked. That if I had, for example, a very good year in gear sales and change that value, it will show up first in net sales and then in the graph when I hit return. Now, the formatting capability in Excel is also very sophisticated. We think that it had to be a good analytic product to compete with 1, 2, 3, and we worked hard on that. But we also worked hard on the presentation capabilities. So for example, I can take this chart and add a legend. Notice that Excel knows what that legend should say, and I can add an arrow and move it around. Maybe add some text, put that on the screen. Now, if this isn't the sort of chart that I want, we have a gallery of 44 different chart types that you can select from, and I can simply page through that gallery, pick a chart type that I'd like, and say, okay, I'd like it to be that sort of chart. So you can see it's pretty simple, but actually you can get very nice effects. What I'm going to do here is load up a chart that we prepared earlier. It's actually just a slightly more elaborate version of the chart that I was using. You notice it's linked to a worksheet. I'm not going to load that worksheet, but I could have. And anytime the values would change in that worksheet, they change in the chart. Now you can do that same sort of formatting on worksheets as well. I'm going to unhide a worksheet that I had stored in the background here. And you notice that I have fonts of different sizes and color. Now this is actually a live worksheet, unlike some other products, so that I can go in and adjust these numbers. And you'll notice that the value for income changed from positive to negative. It's actually a worksheet, and it's context sensitive.
Phil, I have to ask you to kind of dump out of Excel there, because we want to take a look at Quattro. And if you get the keyboard over to Jan, while you're doing that, if you can sort of talk at the same time, the concern of most Lotus users, of course, is the retraining and the relearning of another spreadsheet. How difficult is it for someone who's used to 1, 2, 3 to get into Excel?
We think that it's actually quite simple. We have a lot of 1, 2, 3 compatibility features built in, including things like 1, 2, 3 help, so that if you type the 1, 2, 3 command, you'll get the appropriate Excel command.
I think it's probably worthwhile also mentioning that the hardware requirements are heavier in Excel because of the graphics that you got to drive and so forth.
Sure, so it does require a 286 or 386, but that interface that Excel uses is going to be the standard interface for OS/2 Presentation Manager, so the investment that a user makes learning Excel will pay off over time in lots of different applications.
Jan, I want to ask you to show us Quattro, and I want to explain to our viewers that we had invited Borland to be here to represent Quattro, but they declined, so Jan very courteously agreed to come in and show us Quattro. So go ahead.
But I think that actually turns out to be a plus, because one of the things I want to show here is the chameleon interface, the fact that you can make the interface to Quattro look like whatever you're used to. In this case, we shaped it so that it would look like Lotus 1, 2, 3. And again, I've been using this now for a good 5-10 minutes or so, and because we could shape the interface to look like what we wanted, I can use it very easily. So let's say I want to retrieve a file here. Again, I use exactly the same commands as you do in Lotus, although the look and feel on the screen was a little bit different. One of the things you'll notice in terms of some of the things in Quattro is the graphs. Right off, without even looking at all the features of Quattro, right off, a Lotus user will be able to see the graphs are much more graphically pleasing. Let's just say that we want to take this one and we want to change it rather than a stacked bar chart. Let's say we want to make it into a pie chart. Just do that, we view it, and there it is, very simply.
Okay, Jared, what do you think of Quattro as a competitive product in the Excel 1, 2, 3 marketplace?
Well, I think Quattro's got some limitations in that it's not perfectly 1, 2, 3 compatible. And if your business requires that you use a 1, 2, 3 template, I'd be a little bit leery about using it. Its great advantage is it's much cheaper than either Excel or 1, 2, 3. Also, it has a fantastic macro debugger. It's got a way to rebuild your spreadsheet if it breaks down. It's got some good advantages. As far as its comparison with Excel is concerned, you shouldn't overlook the fact that although they're both spreadsheets, they're very different products. Excel is expensive, it requires top quality hardware, but it's the way spreadsheets are going to go, and it's very powerful. Quattro, on the other hand, will run on smaller, less powerful machines. And it is something that hews to the current 1, 2, 3 tradition, and if you're used to 1, 2, 3, Quattro will be very good for you.
Gentlemen, Jan, thank you very much. Now, you can get some extra functionality out of your spreadsheet, not by buying another program necessarily, but by buying an add-on or an add-in. Wendy Woods has a report on some spreadsheet enhancers.
You don't get to be the largest general contractor in the country unless you can do an outstanding job estimating your costs and your profits. Turner Construction has become the largest with the help of Lotus 1, 2, 3. While Lotus is standard equipment, however, add-ins are not, and each estimator chooses his own. Willie Mautner likes Spell-In, an add-in which checks the spelling of documents made with Lotus 1, 2, 3.
It allows the ability for us to present a cleaner product to the owner that gives it more validity because there isn't the spelling and the typographical errors.
Another important add-in is See More, a program which allows you to see more columns than Lotus would normally allow. The more columns, the smaller the on-screen print.
Now Lotus still has the ability to create windows and titles so that you can play some games with it, but See More I use almost on a daily basis just because I like to see more. I'm able to see more of the sheet and I'm able to manipulate the data more.
Also very popular is an add-in called Squeeze Plus, which allows more Lotus files to be stored on a disk. The sky seems to be the limit for makers of Lotus 1, 2, 3 add-ins, many of whose products have been very successful. In fact, with almost 4 million Lotus 1, 2, 3 users, there's still a very big market for products that can help them. In San Francisco, for the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
With us in the studio now is Jim Kinlan, Director of New Product Marketing with Funk Software. Next to Jim, Chris Randalls, Director of Marketing with Lotus. Gary?
Jim, we've heard Lotus criticized now because of its plain old character output, and what's your response to that? Is it just an old character-based application?
Well, we added a lot of new life to 123 with Always, which is an add-in to 123. And it creates great printouts for 123. It's a very easy product to describe. And I brought along a couple of printouts. This is a printout that was designed and formatted with 123. This is the exact same worksheet that was formatted with Always.
Okay, now, is this just at the laser printer level, or do you actually see this on the screen in this format?
You actually see it on the screen. It's WYSIWYG.
Okay.
What you see on screen is what you will get on the printer. And it works with both laser printers. Great. Okay. Here is that file, and let's pop into Always. Now, I have previously formatted this worksheet, but I've left a couple of rows available for formatting. For example, here, I want to make this title row a larger font. So I simply say Format, Font, and I can select from one of 8 fonts that I can apply to the worksheet. In this case, I want to select Times Italic. And I simply paint the range that I want to apply this font to. So you can see the change automatically on screen. I might also want to make a visual impact on my bottom line. So here I might want to put a double underline. So I simply say / format, underline, double, and paint the range for the double underline. Simple.
All right, now suppose you go back to the spreadsheet and change a number, one of the cells. What, is that reflected directly into this graph?
Yes, if you change a number in 123, the font will remain the same.
Okay, and how about if you change the actual configuration of the spreadsheet, rows and columns and so forth? How does that format, do you have to rebuild the
It depends. If you've changed a row that is amid a box of rows that have already all been formatted in the same way, it will retain that new format. If it's outside of the range, you just have to simply go in and change those particular rows and columns that you might have inserted.
Jim, can you work on the spreadsheet when you're in Always? I mean, can you change the values? No, you have to go back to the spreadsheet.
That's correct.
And then into Always. What about graphs? How does Always handle
Well,
graphs?
let me pull up another worksheet and show you how I can merge text and graphics. In this particular case, I'm popping back into Always again. I've already put one graph into the worksheet. All right. In fact, Always allows you to put several graphs in the worksheet. In this case, I'm going to put another graph, my income file, next to my sales file, and just simply paint the range for the graph to be inserted. Always automatically sizes the graph and puts it side by side. Now I can print this out.
Okay, you have some hard copy here.
Yes,
I think
I do.
It shows a graph integrated in
I
there?
think it's the exact same file where, and again, Always and 123 provide an unbeatable combination of the IBM PC. It's the only spreadsheet that allows you to merge text and graphics.
Okay, Jim, I want to ask you to slide the keyboard over
Sure.
to Chris so we can take a look at Lotus 123 in just a second. While you're setting up Lotus over there, Chris, how much does Always cost?
It's $149.95.
Okay, and it's Always because, of course, you're the guys who did Sideways.
That's right.
And this is the next generation. How would you say the kind of output you can get out of Lotus 123 compares to the stuff we saw in Excel before?
Well, in fact, our advertising says that our output actually exceeds Excel. All right, we have more levels of shade. You can put more fonts on the worksheet. You can merge text and graphics. And actually, you can run it on an 8088 machine, good old XT, or the blazing fast 386.
Okay, and I might point out where I'm running this on a 386 machine right here.
That's correct.
Okay, Chris, everybody wants to know what is going on with Lotus 123 Release 3.0. That's what you're going to show us. And what are the differences now? What are the big new features in 3.0?
Well, we've taken, with Release 3, we've really gone back to basics with the spreadsheet, but maintained full compatibility with 123 Release 2. And we've introduced some very key new technologies for our future spreadsheets, our future generation of spreadsheets.
Could you just show us some of these features?
Yes, I certainly can. I'll just introduce the screen because I think it's very important. When a 123 user is upgraded overnight, let's say, to Release 3 when it's available, they will see that screen come up, and if they press the / key, they'll see a familiar worksheet, range, copy, move menu system. We've added functionality at the end of the menu tree to maintain full macro compatibility. I'll just pull up a file here. One of the differences that you'll notice, apart from the cursor marker we've introduced to make navigation easier, in the top left is the A character, which tells us we're on sheet 1 of a 3D worksheet. And 3D is a key technology we've put into Release 3. What it really is think of the way you work. Think of a Rolodex on your desk. Think of the card file. We've enabled users, instead of having one 2D sheet on their desk, to put several 2D sheets in one 3-dimensional worksheet, and that can be several sheets in a file or several files in memory simultaneously, each made up of several sheets. So if I by learning one simple command, which in this case is control page up, I can step through this 3D worksheet, which is in fact a set of regional sales reports building up to a consolidation at the front of my worksheet. Now, we've made it easier to visualize these with a perspective command. And here you'll see 3 worksheets at a time displayed. And as I step through them, we're looking at 3 of those sheets. In fact, there are 7 altogether in this model. Now, to build up a consolidation through this worksheet file is as simple as using the familiar @sum command. Instead of going along the columns or the rows, stepping back to the next sheet, anchoring the cursor, end, and then control page up moves us right through the set of worksheets to the end. Think of it like punching hole through paper, drilling through a set of pieces of wood. Close the parenthesis, and at the front you'll see a consolidation of all the quarterly sales for the product line bicycles in our sports company. Copy that across, all the way across. I've got a complete consolidation, a normal addition at the bottom. Will add up all of quarter 1. I can copy that across, and no 123 user will be surprised by that. But if you look at this, I can actually step all the way through the spreadsheet. So I can add up all the quarters for all the divisions right the way through. Now, in a matter of seconds, what I've done is build up about 150 complex relationships to form a financial model for my company. That would have taken a long time before
How about the graph of this? Do you have the ability then to do a 3D graph?
Yes, indeed. If you want to do a graph in the Z dimension through the worksheet, you can indeed do that. Although we've introduced a lot of presentation quality features in the graphing end of the spreadsheet.
Show us what you can do with
I'll show you a couple of things like that.
One of the complaints.
Well, I'll open another file. This was one file, I was working on it. If I open another file in front of this worksheet, in this case a sample income statement, one of the things I'll do to complete the model is link this file to the 3D consolidation. And that's as simple as the familiar plus key, moving to the sheet we were on, and you can see in the top left-hand corner the reference to that file, and bring it into the sheet. Copying across will replicate that formula all the way across. And what I've done is set up here a nice-looking graph which is inside the spreadsheet, and that's a new feature. You can look at a graph as it's seen on the spreadsheet, and if I change data in the spreadsheet, it'll be reflected automatically in the graph. Or if I zoom at full size. And 123 users will be familiar with the graphing today, and they'll see some dramatic changes there. More fonts, more annotations, more colors, cross-hatchings, and options.
Now, both of these graphs that we've seen, or the 2 different, through Always and through version 3, seem to be on character boundaries. Is that true, or are you using a pixel boundary?
That's true. Well, that graph you're seeing there is running in a graphics mode, but that's like 123 today. But we've maintained the familiar character-based interface for 123. After all, 123 is not just a phenomenon of one product 5 years ago. It's been the choice for 8 out of 10 spreadsheet users for 6 years in a row. And this interface is the most commonly used interface on PCs throughout the world today.
Chris, we have about 30 seconds left. Everybody wants to know, what has been the problem with 3.0? Why is it so behind schedule, and when will it come out?
Well, I'm glad you asked it, because I know that a lot of people are interested to know what's going on. Quite simply, we deliver quality products. I think our users expect that, and we're not just in the business of delivering a few quick improvements and features in a few months. And we chose not to ship Release 3 this year because it's got quite a few bugs and things we wanted to iron out. And what we're confident of is we can ship in the second quarter of next year with a fully functioning, fully featured product which is bug-free, and I think that's what they expect of us. I'm glad to say our users are very loyal, and this is more an issue for the press and the analysts than it is for us and our users.
So April 89 or so for 3.0.
Well, in Q2 next year.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much. That's our look at the Spreadsheet Wars. Hope we'll see you here next week on the Computer Chronicles. In the Random Access file this week, the early reviews on the new Macintosh 2CX are generally favorable. Apple says the Mac 2CX will be its mainstream Macintosh product now. The 2CX has 3 expansion slots, a small footprint, and PS2-type modular snap-out design. A typical configuration of 4 megabytes in RAM and an 80-megabyte hard drive will retail for about $7,000. Base price for the 1 meg floppy version is $46.69. Apple also hinted that the Mac laptop will be out later this year, and there's also talk of a new low-end Macintosh to sell for under $1,000. Apple has unveiled two new large full-page monitors. The 15-inch monitor offers 4 shades of gray and 640 by 870 resolution. The 21-inch monitor displays 2 pages side by side. It can show up to 16 shades of gray. Resolution is 1152 by 870. A federal court in Connecticut has ruled that 3 software clone makers are guilty of copyright violations, even though they didn't copy any code. The court said they did imitate the look and feel of the program called Costimator and were therefore guilty. Remember the good old Hercules graphics card? Well, Hercules is back with a new VGA card that's half the price of the IBM card and fully IBM compatible. At a list price of $299, the board is about 25% less than most competitive products. Sun Microsystems has announced the development of a new font technology called Open Fonts, which will be challenging Adobe's PostScript as a font scaling standard. Sun says Open Fonts is an automatic system which works independently of the imaging model. And Raster Image Processing Systems says it has broken the PostScript encryption scheme and will be making available off-the-shelf Adobe fonts for use with clone printers. Commodore has introduced a host of new Amiga products, including a new Unix version of the 2500, a new Amiga 500 desktop video system, and a new high-res color graphics card for the 2000. Online information services continued to grow last year, though the growth was slower than in the previous 2 years. Online subscriptions were up 14%. CompuServe is still the biggest online service with nearly 500,000 subscribers. Apple Plus Magazine will be no more. Ziv Davis has sold the Apple II Mag to IDG, which will merge it with its own Insider publication. Finally, MicroSync has unveiled a new power protection system that does more than just protect against power surges. The system is called Boomerang, and if it detects a power dip for longer than 1 second, it automatically backs up your work onto a hard drive, parks the head, and shuts down. When you turn the computer back on, it automatically restores the system to where it was when the power went out. It includes a lithium battery to ensure backup completion. The combination hardware-software package sells for $299. That's it for this week's Chronicles. We'll see you next week.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte Magazine, and VIX, the Byte Information Exchange. In print and online, Byte and VIX serve computer professionals worldwide with detailed information on new hardware, software, and technologies.
For a transcript of this week's Computer Chronicles, send $4 to PTV Publications, Post Office Box 701, Kent, Ohio 44240. Please indicate program date.